The rain fell hard on the broken streets of Shanghai, mixing with the dust from another demolished building. Commander Sarah Chen crouched behind a concrete barrier, watching the patrol ships drift overhead like metal vultures. Their hulls gleamed with symbols from a dozen different worlds, each one representing a species that had voted to put chains on humanity. 50 years had passed since the day the ships arrived. Sarah remembered the stories her grandmother told back when she was still alive, how the whole world had celebrated when the signals came from space, how people danced in the streets when the massive vessels descended from the clouds, carrying beings from across the galaxy. First contact, humanity's greatest dream finally coming true. The dream lasted exactly 3 months. Sarah touched the scar on her left cheek, a gift from a Krell enforcer during the Shanghai uprising 15 years ago. The Krell were massive creatures built like walking tanks with 4 arms and hide tough as steel. They enjoyed their work as prison guards. She had learned to hate them specifically, but she had learned to hate all of them generally. "Commander, the patrol is moving east," whispered Marcus Webb from behind her. The former aerospace engineer had lost his wife and daughter in the purges. Now he built bombs instead of spacecraft. "We have maybe 10 minutes. Sarah nodded and signaled to the rest of her team. 12 fighters, all that remained of Cell 7 after last month's disaster. They moved through the rubble like shadows, heading toward the old metro tunnel entrance. Down there, in the darkness beneath the dead city, they had found something. Something the Council had tried very hard to erase from history. The Galactic Council. 847 species, representing thousands of worlds spread across the spiral arm of the galaxy. When humanity first met them, the Council had seemed so wise, so advanced, so peaceful. They spoke of unity and cooperation, of joining the great community of thinking beings. Earth's leaders had been eager to sign every treaty, to accept every condition, to prove that humans could be good galactic citizens. Then came the evaluation period. Council observers spread across Earth, studying human society, human history, human nature. They attended universities and visited museums. They watched movies and read books. They analyzed human art and human war, and what they found terrified them. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were creative in ways that made the Council uncomfortable. Humans had gone from primitive tribes to splitting atoms in just a few thousand years. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times but always found a way to survive. Humans didn't follow the patterns that other species followed. Humans broke rules that the galaxy considered fundamental. The Council debated for weeks in their Grand Assembly. Some species argued that humanity should be given a chance. The Vryn, peaceful beings who looked like tall, gentle deer with silver eyes, spoke eloquently about human potential. They had walked human streets and made human friends. They believed humans could learn galactic ways. But fear won the debate. One by one, the species voted. Even the Vryn in the end cast their vote for quarantine. Sarah would never forget watching the broadcast, seeing the Vryn ambassador stand with tears running down his face as he pressed the button. With deep regret, he had said, for the safety of the galaxy. The vote was unanimous. 847 species agreed. Earth would be placed under protective custody for the good of all. Sarah dropped through the tunnel entrance, her boots splashing in the standing water below. The others followed quickly. Marcus lit a chemical torch, casting dancing shadows on the tunnel walls. They moved deeper, past the old turnstiles and the broken trains, heading toward the facility that shouldn't exist. The occupation had been efficient. Council enforcers from rotating species took turns managing Earth's population. Humans were put to work in mining operations, extracting rare elements for Council industry. Human children were taken to re-education centers to learn proper behavior. Human culture was systematically erased and replaced with approved galactic alternatives. Resistance was met with orbital bombardment. Shanghai had resisted. The city had burned for 3 weeks. Sarah had been 17 years old, hiding in basements while the sky turned to fire. Her parents had died in the first strike, her brother in the second. She survived because she had been small enough to hide in places the enforcers couldn't reach. "Here," Marcus said, stopping at a wall that looked like all the others. He pressed his hand against specific points in sequence. Something clicked deep in the concrete. A section of the wall slid aside, revealing a passage that descended further into darkness. This facility had been built in secret during the last days of freedom. Earth's scientists and military leaders knew the vote was coming. They had seen the fear in the Council's eyes. In the final weeks before the enforcers arrived, working day and night, they had created hiding places across the planet. Places where human knowledge could survive. Places where weapons could wait. The passage opened into a massive underground chamber. Emergency lights flickered on, revealing rows of equipment covered in protective sheeting. Sarah felt her breath catch. They had heard rumors of places like this, but finding one intact was beyond hope. "Holy God," Marcus whispered, moving forward like a man in a dream. He pulled back a sheet, revealing a workstation covered in technical diagrams. "These are jump drive schematics, but not council designs. These are human innovations." Sarah moved to another station. Weapons designs, ship blueprints, battle strategies, and something else. A thick binder marked with a single word, Prometheus. She opened it carefully. The first page contained a message written in her grandmother's handwriting. Sarah's grandmother had been a colonel in what remained of Earth's military. She had disappeared the day before the enforcers landed. The message was simple. "To whoever finds this, we knew we would lose. We knew they would take everything. But we also knew that humans don't stay defeated. In this facility and 19 others like it, we have preserved the knowledge they fear, the creativity they wanted to suppress, the fighting spirit they tried to break. When you are ready, when the moment comes, use these tools. Show them why they were right to fear us. Show them that enslaving humanity was their greatest mistake." Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. She touched the page, connecting across 50 years to a grandmother she barely remembered. "We found you," she whispered. "We're ready." "Commander, you need to see this," one of her fighters called from across the chamber. He stood in front of a communications console that somehow still had power. A light blinked steadily on its surface. Marcus reached the console first, his engineer's mind already processing what he saw. "This is a deep space receiver. It's been collecting a signal for," he checked the logs, "for 32 years. Automated recording on a loop." "Play it," Sarah ordered. Static filled the chamber, then a voice human and clear. "This is Captain James Rodriguez of the colony ship Defiance, broadcasting to Earth. We have successfully established a settlement in the Perseus Arm, coordinates attached. We number 40,000 souls living free under open sky. We detected the council occupation through long-range sensors. We mourn for our homeworld, but we have survived. We have thrived. We have built something new, something they cannot touch. Earth, if you hear this, know that humanity endures. The fire still burns. We wait for the day when you join us. We wait for the day when we return together. Defiance out." The chamber fell silent. Sarah looked at her team, saw the same expression on every face. Hope. Real hope for the first time in their lives. "There's more," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "The signal includes technical data, FTL drive specifications, weapons systems, defensive technologies. They've been developing independently for 200 years. Commander, they're more advanced than the Council." Sarah moved to the center of the chamber, looking at the resources surrounding them. Weapons, ships, knowledge, and now a destination, a place where humanity still lived free. Above them, through hundreds of feet of earth and concrete, the Council's ships patrolled. 16 species currently shared occupation duty on Earth. The Krell with their brutal efficiency, the Sthik with their cold calculation, the Morphids who could change shape and infiltrate human groups, and dozens more, each taking their turn, each enforcing the galaxy's will. They thought humans were broken. They thought 50 years of chains had crushed the spirit that made humanity dangerous. "Marcus, how long to get this equipment operational?" Sarah asked. "The weapon systems, maybe a week. The ships..." He moved to examine the covered vessels at the far end of the chamber. "These aren't finished. They're prototypes. But with the data from the Defiance, with what they've learned..." His eyes went wide. "Commander, I think I can do it. 3 months, maybe 4. "You have 2, Sarah said. "Start immediately. Pull anyone you need from the other cells." "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. Sarah looked at the Prometheus binder. "I'm going to read everything in here, and then I'm going to send a message to every resistance cell on Earth. The Council thinks they've won. They think humanity accepted its place. They're wrong." She walked to the communications console, staring at the blinking light that had been waiting decades for someone to find it. The Defiance was out there. Humans living free, building, creating, developing without the Council's leash. "They voted for our enslavement," Sarah said quietly. "Every single species. Even the ones who cried while doing it. They all agreed that humanity was too dangerous to be free. And you know what? They were right. We are dangerous. We're the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered. She turned to face her team, seeing fighters who had lost everything, who had lived their entire lives under occupation, who had been told since childhood that resistance was futile. We're going to prove them right, Sarah said. We're going to show them exactly what happens when you chain the most creative, most stubborn, most unpredictable species in the galaxy. We're going to show them that there are consequences for unanimous votes. Marcus smiled, the first real smile Sarah had seen from him in years. What's the plan, Commander? Sarah opened the Prometheus binder, reading the detailed strategies her grandmother's generation had prepared. Plans for guerrilla warfare, plans for sabotage, plans for capturing council ships, plans for breaking the orbital blockade, plans for taking the fight beyond Earth's atmosphere. We're going to escape, Sarah said. We're going to reach the Defiance. We're going to unite with our free brothers and sisters, and then we're going to come back, not as slaves begging for mercy, as warriors demanding justice. She looked up at the ceiling, imagining the ships above, the enforcers who thought they were safe, the council that believed humanity was contained. They supported our enslavement, Sarah said. Now they're going to face our revenge. And when we're done, the skies will burn. The team stood silent for a moment, the weight of the decision settling on them. Then one by one they nodded. They had lived as prisoners their entire lives. Better to die as free fighters than survive as slaves. Sarah began distributing assignments. They had 2 months to prepare. 2 months to turn these hidden resources into functional weapons. 2 months before humanity reminded the galaxy why 847 species had been afraid. The rain continued to fall on Shanghai's ruins above, but below in the darkness a fire had been lit. And like all fires humanity had ever kindled, this one would spread. 2 weeks had passed since the discovery beneath Shanghai. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been a conference room in Geneva, now just another broken space in another dead city. Maps covered the walls, marked with locations across Earth where similar facilities might be hidden. Her network had grown. 17 resistance cells now worked together, sharing information for the first time in years. The Krell are executing prisoners in Mumbai, reported Kenji Tanaka, leader of Cell 3. His face appeared on a salvaged holographic projector. 20 civilians for every enforcer we killed last month. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. The Krell claimed to be honorable warriors. They followed strict codes about combat and dignity, but those codes apparently didn't apply when dealing with humans. Humans weren't considered worthy opponents. Humans were just problems to be managed. Are the Mumbai cells secure? Sarah asked, underground. But they're angry, Commander. They want to hit back. Tell them to wait. We have something bigger planned. The projection flickered and died. Power was unreliable even in their hidden bases. The Council extracted Earth's resources but didn't maintain the infrastructure. Why would they? Humans were temporary occupants being prepared for relocation. That was the official policy. In practice, it meant slow extinction. Marcus Webb entered the room, covered in grease and carrying a data pad. He had barely slept since they found the facility. I've got good news and complicated news, he said, dropping into a chair. Start with good, Sarah said. The weapon systems are functional. We've got plasma rifles, EMP charges, and something called a neural disruptor that I don't fully understand but definitely works. Tested it on captured council drones. Drops them like stones. And the complicated news? Marcus pulled up a schematic on his data pad. The ships. They're more advanced than I thought. Whoever designed these was thinking decades ahead, but they're not finished. Hull plating is incomplete, weapon systems are prototypes, and the drives. He shook his head. The drives are brilliant and insane at the same time. Explain, Sarah said, moving closer to study the display. Council ships use jump gates. They punch a hole through space at specific points, travel through a different dimension, pop out somewhere else. It's fast but limited. You can only jump where there's a gate. The Council controls all the gates, so they control all the movement. Sarah nodded. She knew this. The gates were how the Council maintained power. No species could move through their territory without permission. These human drives don't use gates, Marcus continued. They create their own tunnels through space. Independent FTL, you can jump from anywhere to anywhere. No infrastructure needed. No permission required. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. That's what the Council was afraid of. True freedom of movement. Exactly. But here's the problem. The prototypes were never tested. The math looks good, and the data from the Defiance proves the theory works, but actually building them... Marcus rubbed his eyes. We need parts we don't have. Exotic materials that aren't on Earth anymore. The Council stripped the planet clean. Where do we get them? Sarah asked. Marcus smiled tiredly. From the Council. Their ships are full of exactly what we need. We just have to take them. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. Her team scrambled to defensive positions, weapons appearing in trained hands. Report, Sarah shouted. Multiple signatures incoming, called out Elena Rodriguez, their sensor operator. Council ships mixed species. 20 vessels entering atmosphere, heading directly for us. Sarah's blood went cold. They had been found. Somehow, after all their precautions, the Council had located their base. Everyone out. Use escape tunnels, move. Sarah grabbed the Prometheus binder and Marcus's datapad. Marcus was already wiping the computer systems, destroying evidence. The base erupted into controlled chaos. 50 fighters fled through 6 different tunnel systems, carrying what equipment they could, abandoning the rest. Sarah heard the whine of plasma weapons above as Council ships began their attack. She ran through the tunnels with Marcus and Elena, heading east toward a safe house near the lake. Behind them, the walls shook with impacts. The Council was thorough. They would destroy everything. How did they find us? Marcus panted as they ran. Traitor or surveillance we missed, Sarah said. Doesn't matter now. We adapt. They emerged 3 kilometers from the base in the basement of a collapsed hospital. Through broken windows, they watched the Council ship circling above the Geneva facility, pouring fire into the earth. Plasma bolts turned stone to glass. Kinetic weapons cracked bedrock. The message was clear. Resist and die. Commander receiving signals from the other cells, Elena said, checking her portable comm unit. Everyone got out. We lost some equipment, but no people. Sarah nodded, forcing herself to think past the anger. They had escaped, but the Council knew about the resistance now. The occupation would increase. Reprisals would be brutal. Where's the nearest backup facility? She asked Marcus. He checked his datapad, pulling up the map they had been compiling. Switzerland used to have extensive military bunkers. If Earth's military followed the same pattern as Shanghai, there should be another cache in the Alps. Maybe 3 days' travel if we avoid patrols. Then that's where we go, Sarah said. Elena, tell the cells to scatter. Independent operations only. No communication unless emergency. We meet in 30 days at the fallback coordinates. As her team dispersed into the ruins of Geneva, Sarah allowed herself one look back at the smoke rising from their destroyed base. The Council thought this was a victory. They thought destroying one hideout would break the resistance. They didn't understand humans at all. The journey to the Alps took 5 days, not 3. Council patrols had increased across Europe. Twice they had to hide while Morphid scouts passed overhead, their shape-shifting bodies flowing like liquid as they searched. Once they nearly walked into a Krell checkpoint, avoiding it only because Elena's sensors detected the power signatures. They traveled through dead forests and empty towns. Earth had been beautiful once, Sarah's grandmother had told her. Green and alive. Now it was gray and dying. The Council's extraction operations didn't include environmental restoration. The bunker entrance was hidden in a collapsed dam, accessible only through underwater passages. Marcus had to modify their breathing equipment with scavenged parts, but they managed. The tunnel led deep into the mountain, ending at a blast door that required a code. Sarah tried her grandmother's service number. Nothing. She tried the date of the Council's arrival. Nothing. Then, on instinct, she tried the coordinates of the Defiance's signal. The door opened. Inside was a facility larger than Shanghai's. Equipment stretched into the darkness, row after row of stored technology. But more than that, there were people. 30 men and women emerged from the shadows, weapons raised, looking half-starved and entirely dangerous. Identify yourselves, demanded an old man with a scarred face and military bearing. Commander Sarah Chen, Resistance Cell 7. This is Marcus Webb and Elena Rodriguez. The old man lowered his weapon. Chen, any relation to Colonel Patricia Chen? Sarah felt her throat tighten. My grandmother. Then you're in the right place. I'm General Thomas Stone. I served with your grandmother. He gestured around the facility. We've been waiting 50 years for someone to find us. Sarah stared. You've been down here since the occupation started? Some of us. Others came later in shifts. Your grandmother established a protocol. Someone had to protect these facilities, keep them operational. We volunteered to be buried alive so humanity would have a fighting chance someday. General Stone led them deeper into the bunker. Sarah saw hydroponic gardens, water recycling systems, even a small living area. These people had built an entire society underground, cut off from the surface, surviving on hope. Your timing is interesting, Stone said. 2 days ago, we intercepted Council communications. They're panicking about something. Increased military presence, emergency council sessions, classified alerts. They found our base in Geneva, Sarah said. It's more than that. The chatter suggests they've detected something in deep space. Something approaching Council territory. Stone smiled grimly. I think your message to the Defiance was received. Sarah felt hope surge through her. They're coming? No, but they sent something. A probe maybe, or a scout ship. The Council is terrified. They've kept the Defiance secret from the rest of the galaxy. If other species learn that humans have been thriving independently, building advanced technology without Council oversight, questions will be asked. Uncomfortable questions about why Earth needed to be enslaved. Marcus was already examining the equipment. General, these ships are complete. Why didn't you use them? Use them for what? 30 people can't liberate a planet. We needed someone to find us, someone with a network. Someone who could coordinate a real resistance. Stone looked at Sarah. We needed a Chen. Over the next week, Sarah learned the true scope of what her grandmother's generation had built. 20 facilities across Earth, each containing weapons, ships, and technology. Each guarded by volunteers who had sacrificed everything to keep them hidden. The Prometheus protocols weren't just battle plans. They were a complete strategy for breaking free and fighting back. The key is simultaneous action, General Stone explained, showing Sarah tactical maps. The Council has 400 ships in Earth's orbital defense network. We can't fight them directly, but we can steal ships from landing facilities. We can sabotage communications. We can create chaos across multiple continents at once. And then? Sarah asked. Then we run. Break through the blockade, reach the Defiance, unite our forces. Stone's expression hardened. And then we show the Council what happens when you underestimate humanity. Marcus had integrated the Defiance's technical data with the prototype ships. It works, he said excitedly. With their improvements in our designs, we can build working FTL drives. Independent of Council gates. They'll never see us coming. Elena pulled up communications intercepts. The Council is dividing. Some species are questioning the Earth occupation. The Vryn have been speaking openly about justice and rights. Other species are doubling down, calling for stricter controls. Sarah remembered the Vryn ambassador, crying as he voted for humanity's enslavement. Their regret doesn't free us. Their guilt doesn't feed our children. Agreed, Stone said. But division in the Council helps us. When they're busy arguing with each other, they're not watching us as carefully. Sarah studied the maps, the equipment, the plans. Everything was here. The tools for liberation. But liberation had a cost. She looked at General Stone and the others who had spent 50 years underground. She thought of the fighters in her cells, people who had known only occupation. She considered the Defiance, humans who had escaped but lived with the knowledge that Earth suffered. What about retaliation? She asked quietly. When we break out, the Council will punish those left behind. Yes, Stone said simply. Which is why we take as many people as we can. The ships can hold 200,000 if we pack them tight. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to preserve humanity. Enough to build an army. 200,000 out of 3 billion. Sarah felt sick. But what choice did they have? Stay enslaved and slowly die, or risk everything for a chance at freedom? How long to prepare? She asked. If we activate all 20 facilities, coordinate all the resistance cells, stockpile supplies, and modify the ships for passenger capacity? Stone calculated. 2 months. Maybe 3. You have 2, Sarah said. Start now. Stone nodded and began issuing orders to his people. The bunker came alive with activity. 50 years of waiting had ended. The forgotten arsenal was about to be remembered. Sarah stepped outside the facility, climbing to a mountain overlook where she could see the gray sky above. Council ships drifted like clouds, eternal reminders of Earth's chains. We're coming, she whispered to the Defiance somewhere in the darkness between stars. Hold on. Humanity remembers how to fight. Behind her, in the mountain depths, engines began to wake. The night before Operation Exodus, Sarah Chen couldn't sleep. She stood in the command center deep beneath the Alps, watching status reports scroll across dozens of screens. 20 facilities now online, 47 resistance cells coordinated, 178 captured or modified ships ready for launch, 193,000 people ready to evacuate. Not enough ships. Too many people. They had made the hardest decisions, prioritizing children, skilled workers, fighters. Still, millions would be left behind. Millions who would face council retaliation. Second-guessing, General Stone asked, joining her in the darkness, wondering if we're making the right choice. We're not, Stone said bluntly. There is no right choice. Stay and we die slow. Run and we die fighting. At least fighting means we die free. Sarah touched the console, feeling the faint vibration of power running through the facility. Somewhere above, council ships maintained their eternal patrol. Confident in their control, they had no idea what was coming. All cells report ready, Elena announced from her station. The Krell are rotating shifts at dawn. The thick transport arrives at the Shanghai landing facility in 6 hours. The Morphid surveillance network has a scheduled maintenance window at OR 400. Everything had to happen at once. The Council's strength was their coordination across hundreds of species. But that coordination required communication networks, supply chains, and predictable schedules. Humans had spent 2 months mapping every pattern, every weakness, every moment when the machine of occupation was vulnerable. Marcus entered the command center, looking exhausted, but determined. Final equipment check complete. All ships have functional FTL drives. They're not elegant, but they'll work once. Once is all we need, Sarah said. Get some rest. Tomorrow changes everything. He laughed without humor. Rest right, because we're just planning a nice relaxing day of stealing warships and breaking through an orbital blockade. Marcus, Sarah said quietly. Thank you. For everything. He met her eyes. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if we survive. The hours crawled past. Sarah reviewed the plan for the 100th time. Phase 1. Simultaneous attacks on landing facilities across Earth. Capture Council ships before they could launch. Phase 2. Global uprising to cover the evacuation. Draw Council forces away from the launch sites. Phase 3. Break orbit through the weakest points in the blockade. Phase 4. Jump to the Defiance coordinates and pray the drives didn't tear the ships apart. So many things could go wrong. Probably would go wrong. But humans had learned something during 50 years of occupation. Perfection was impossible. Survival required accepting chaos and adapting faster than your enemy. At OR 400, Sarah gave the order. Across Earth, in 20 locations simultaneously, resistance fighters emerged from hiding. They struck fast and hard, hitting council facilities with everything they had. 50 years of anger poured out in focused violence. In Shanghai, Cell 7 stormed the landing facility where a thick transport had just arrived. The thick were insect-like beings with multiple limbs and compound eyes. They were efficient, calculating, and completely unprepared for humans with plasma rifles and neural disruptors. Go, 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 Sarah shouted, leading the charge. Her fighters poured through the facility gates, overwhelming the guards through sheer ferocity. The stick tried to organize a defense, but humans didn't fight like council species. Humans didn't follow expected tactics. They came from unexpected angles, used the environment, and fought with a desperation that made them terrifying. The transport ship was massive, designed to carry thousands of tons of extracted resources off-world. Now it would carry humans instead. Marcus and his engineering team swarmed the vessel, overriding its systems, taking control. Ship secured. Marcus called over the comm. Loading passengers now. Civilians poured from hidden tunnels, carrying whatever they could. Children, elderly, wounded. Sarah's fighters formed a perimeter, holding off council reinforcements. Plasma fire lit the dawn sky. Commander, we have Krell inbound, Elena warned. Full combat squad, 2 minutes out. The Krell were the council's favorite enforcers for situations like this. Massive, armored, nearly unstoppable. Each one was worth 10 human fighters in straight combat. Fall back to secondary positions, Sarah ordered. Use the charges. Her team retreated behind prepared defenses. When the Krell arrived, confident in their superiority, they walked into a trap. Explosions ripped through the facility. Buildings collapsed. EMP charges disabled their armor, and then humans swarmed them, attacking with a coordination the Krell hadn't expected. It wasn't clean. Sarah lost 12 fighters in 5 minutes. But the Krell lost 4 warriors, and for the Council, That was unacceptable losses. They retreated to regroup. Transport is full, Marcus called. 20,000 aboard. She's sluggish but spaceworthy. Get her in the air, Sarah ordered. We'll cover your launch. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In Mumbai, Cell 3 captured a Morphid surveillance ship. In Lagos, fighters seized a weapons transport. In Rio, Buenos Aires, Moscow, Tokyo, Sydney. Humanity struck everywhere at once, overwhelming the occupation through pure audacity. The Council's response was immediate and massive. Orbital defense platforms activated. Ships throughout the solar system received emergency calls. 400 vessels began converging on Earth, but the Council made a mistake. They thought like a civilization that had spent millennia following rules. They assumed humans would retreat, would scatter, would try to hide their captured ships. Instead, every captured vessel launched directly toward orbit. Sarah stood on the bridge of the stick transport as it climbed through the atmosphere. Through the viewports, she saw dozens of other ships rising from Earth's surface, each one carrying thousands of desperate humans. Council blockade forming ahead, Elena reported. 300 ships in defensive formation. They're demanding we surrender. Sarah activated the broadcast system, sending her message to every Council ship and every Council world within range. Her voice was steady, cold, and absolutely certain. This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. 50 years ago, 847 species voted to enslave humanity. You said we were too dangerous to be free. You were right. We are dangerous. We're dangerous because we survive. We're dangerous because we fight. And we're dangerous because we never forget who wronged us. She paused, letting her words sink in. Around her, crew members waited in tense silence. We're leaving Earth today. You can try to stop us. Many of us will die, but some of us will make it through. And when we do, we're not going to hide. We're going to thrive. We're going to build. We're going to become exactly what you feared. And then we're coming back. Not for conquest, for justice, for accountability, for revenge. Sarah cut the transmission and turned to Marcus. All ships maximum acceleration. Break the blockade. What followed was chaos. 178 human ships, most barely spaceworthy, charged toward a Council blockade of 300 advanced warships. By every tactical calculation, it should have been a massacre, but humans had advantages the Council didn't understand. Humans were willing to die. Humans didn't value their ships. Humans fought dirty. The first human ship through wasn't trying to survive. It was a missile. Loaded with every explosive the resistance could build, it rammed directly into the center of the Council formation. The explosion tore through a dozen vessels. While the Council reeled, more human ships poured through the gap. They didn't fight one-on-one. They swarmed, multiple ships focusing on single targets. They used kamikaze runs, proximity weapons, tactics that no civilized species would consider. Concentrate fire on the command ships, Sarah ordered. Make them leadership, make them targets. Council warships were advanced, but they were designed for organized combat between professional militaries. They weren't designed for knife fights with opponents who didn't care about survival. Sarah's transport took heavy damage, hull breaches in 3 sections, engines at 60%, half the weapons offline, but they kept pushing forward, fighting through the blockade meter by bloody meter. Commander, we're getting separation, Elena shouted. 30 ships have broken through. They're clearing the engagement zone. Tell them to jump as soon as they're clear. Don't wait for the others. Around Sarah's ship, human vessels died. The Krell destroyed a transport carrying 18,000 people. The Stick disabled an engineering ship. A Morphid cruiser hunted down fleeing evacuation pods, but more ships were getting through. The Council blockade was designed to contain, not to fight an enemy that treated destruction as tactics. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more slipped past. We're through, Marcus yelled. We're through the blockade. Sarah's ship burst free of the engagement zone, wounded but alive. Behind them, Earth hung in space, beautiful and broken. Around them, 50 other human ships accelerated away from the battle. Jump drives charging, Elena reported. Coordinates locked on defiance signal. Drive will be ready in 2 minutes. Those were the longest 2 minutes of Sarah's life. The Council was pursuing, firing long-range weapons. 3 more human ships died in those final moments. Then the drives engaged. Reality twisted. The ship lurched as it punched through space itself, creating a tunnel through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Sarah's last view of Earth was fire in the sky and ships still fighting, still dying, still buying time for those who escaped. The jump felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Stars stretched into lines. Physics became suggestions. Sarah's stomach tried to turn inside out. Then they were through. The ship dropped back into normal space light years from Earth. Sensors showed other vessels emerging around them. 20, 30, 40 ships. More arriving every minute. Final count, Sarah ordered, her voice hoarse. Elena worked her console, face pale. 62 ships made it through. The others, she couldn't finish. Sarah did the math in her head. 62 ships out of 178. Maybe 90,000 people saved. Millions left behind. Are we alone? She asked. Scanning, Marcus said. Then his face lit up. Commander, I'm reading massive artificial structures. Shipyards, habitats, defense platforms. It's the Defiance. They built a whole civilization out here. On the view screen, a blue planet appeared, smaller than Earth but covered in oceans and green continents. Orbiting it were hundreds of structures, evidence of 2 centuries of human development without council chains. A transmission came through. Approaching vessels, this is Defense Coordinator James Chen of New Defiance. We've been waiting a long time for you. Welcome home, Earth. Welcome to free space. Sarah felt tears on her face. James Chen, her grandmother's brother, family she'd never known existed. New Defiance, this is Commander Sarah Chen. We're in need of repairs, medical assistance, and... She looked around at her exhausted, traumatized crew. We need to know we didn't sacrifice everything for nothing. You sacrificed everything for freedom, came the response. Now come down, rest, heal, and then we'll show you what humanity built while the Council wasn't watching. They enslaved Earth, but they never found us. And together, we're going to make them regret both. Sarah's ship limped toward the planet, surrounded by survivors who had paid an impossible price for escape. Behind them, across unfathomable distance, Earth suffered the consequences of their rebellion. But ahead humanity waited, free, strong, and ready to turn the hunted into hunters. The Council had supported Earth's enslavement. Now Earth's revenge was just beginning, and the skies would burn. New Defiance was everything Earth had forgotten how to be. Sarah stood in the observation deck of the orbital station, watching clouds drift across blue oceans below. Real forests covered the continents. Real cities glowed in the night. Humans lived here without chains, without fear, without council ships darkening the sky. 2 weeks had passed since the escape. 2 weeks of medical treatment, debriefing, and adjustment to freedom. Sarah still woke up expecting to see gray skies and patrolling enforcers. Instead, she saw a world humanity had built alone. Impressive, isn't it? James Chen joined her at the viewport. He was old now, in his 90s, but his eyes carried the same fire Sarah remembered from pictures of her grandmother. My sister would have loved to see this. Patricia always believed humans would find a way. She prepared us, Sarah said quietly. Without her facilities, we'd still be prisoners. But you used them. That takes courage. James gestured to the planet below. We've built a good life here. 40 million people now, spread across 3 planets and 24 stations. We have technology the Council never shared with Earth. We have ships, weapons, infrastructure. But we've also lost something. What? Sarah asked. Anger. We've lived free so long we forgot what chains feel like. But you. He looked at her with respect. You and your people you remember. And that makes you dangerous in ways we've forgotten. Sarah met his gaze. Good. We need to be dangerous. The Council thinks they won. They're executing thousands of humans on Earth right now, punishment for our escape. While we hide here, safe and comfortable, our people are dying. Which is why the Council voted for a general emergency session, James said. Every species, all 847 of them, meeting to decide Earth's fate. Some want genocide, others want mercy. Most want this problem to disappear. When? Sarah asked. 3 months. Their bureaucracy moves slowly. James smiled grimly. Which gives us time to make sure the problem doesn't disappear. It spreads. Over the following weeks, Sarah learned the full scope of what New Defiance had achieved. Their FTL technology was decades ahead of Council standards. Their weapons were more efficient. Their ships were faster, tougher, and didn't rely on jump gates. But more than technology, they had knowledge. 2 centuries of watching the Council from outside, studying their trade routes, their military movements, their politics. The Defiance had been preparing for this moment since they detected Earth's occupation. "We couldn't help before," explained Admiral Victoria Stone, General Stone's granddaughter and commander of the Defiance fleet. "We had 40 million people. They have trillions. Direct confrontation would be suicide. But now you're here. Now we have motivation. Now we have a cause." She pulled up a holographic display of Council space. "The Council isn't a unified government. It's a coalition of convenience. These species tolerate each other because they're afraid of conflict. But they're also afraid of each other. That fear is a weapon." Marcus studied the display, his engineer's mind seeing patterns. "We can't fight them head-on, but we can make them fight each other." "Exactly," Victoria said. "We hit their trade routes. We free their labor camps. We expose their hypocrisy. We make them question each other." Sarah leaned forward. "You're talking about guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale." "I'm talking about revolution," Victoria corrected. "The Council has enslaved dozens of species over the millennia. Minor species, weak species, species that couldn't defend themselves. Earth was just the latest. But if we show those species that resistance is possible, that humans can fight back." "The Council fractures," Sarah finished. "Species rise up. The coalition collapses. And in the chaos, we take Earth back," James said. "Not through conquest, through liberation." The plan was audacious and probably insane. The newly formed Terran Retribution fleet numbered only 300 ships, crewed by a mix of Earth refugees and Defiance volunteers. Against the Council's thousands of vessels, it was laughable. But humans didn't plan to fight fair. The first strike came without warning. A Council mining operation in the outer reaches, far from major trade routes, staffed by Krell overseers managing enslaved populations from 6 minor species. The operation extracted rare elements worth billions. The Terran fleet appeared from nowhere, bypassing all the jump gates, arriving through independent FTL directly in the system. They broadcast a simple message: "Leave or die. You have 10 minutes." The Krell didn't leave. They believed themselves untouchable, confident in Council authority. 8 minutes later, the mining operation was debris. The Krell were dead. The enslaved workers were loaded onto Terran ships and evacuated. Before the Council could respond, the Terran fleet was gone, vanished into deep space where no jump gates existed. They struck again 3 days later, then 5 days after that, then twice in 1 day, each time targeting Council economic interests, mining operations, processing facilities, trade stations, never military targets, always infrastructure, and every time they freed enslaved populations, broadcasting their actions across every frequency the Council used. "This is the Terran Retribution fleet," Sarah announced after the 7th raid. "We are humans from Earth enslaved by Council vote 50 years ago. We escaped, we survived, we thrived, and now we're here to show every species that the Council isn't invincible. Fight back, rise up, freedom is possible." The Council's response was furious. They sent battle groups to hunt the human fleet, but battle groups needed jump gates to move quickly. The Terran fleet didn't. By the time Council ships arrived at an attack site, the humans were gone. "They're panicking," Elena reported during a strategy meeting aboard the flagship Defiance's Fire. "Intercepting Council communications. Some species are demanding increased protection. Others are questioning why resources are being diverted to chase humans. The Vryn are doing something interesting," Marcus added. "They're documenting every Council military movement, every decision, every debate. They're building a record." Sarah remembered the Vryn ambassador crying as he voted for Earth's enslavement. "Are they helping us?" "Unclear," Marcus said, "but they're definitely not helping the Council." The turning point came at the Crossroads Nexus, a major trade hub where 17 Council species maintained facilities. The Nexus was heavily defended, considered untouchable. The Terran fleet attacked it anyway. 300 human ships against 5,000 Council vessels from a dozen species. The battle should have lasted minutes, ending in human extinction. Instead, it lasted 18 hours and became a nightmare for the Council. Sarah stood on the bridge of Defiance's fire, watching tactical displays fill with red icons. So many enemies, so many ways to die. All ships, remember your training, she broadcast to the fleet. We're not trying to win. We're trying to make them bleed, make every second cost them, make them fear us. The Terran ships didn't form traditional battle lines. They scattered, forcing the Council to divide their forces. They used the Nexus itself as cover, dancing through the commercial traffic, making the Council choose between firing and hitting their own facilities. When cornered, human ships didn't surrender. They rammed. They exploded. They took Council vessels with them into death. Krell battlecruiser disabled. Elena called out. Stick destroyer destroyed. Morphid carrier losing atmosphere. But the costs were devastating. Sarah watched her fleet die, ship by ship. Friends, volunteers, Earth refugees who had survived everything only to die in deep space. Commander, we're down to 80 ships, Marcus reported, his voice strained. We need to withdraw. Not yet, Sarah said, studying the tactical display. The Council fleet was winning but disorganized. They hadn't expected this level of resistance. They hadn't expected humans to be this competent. More importantly, they were broadcasting everything. Across Council space, billions of beings watched the battle, watched 300 human ships hold off 5,000 Council vessels for hours, watched humans fight with a ferocity that made hardened warriors hesitate. Now we withdraw, Sarah said. All ships jump on my mark. Random vectors. Emergency protocols. The remaining Terran vessels vanished from the Nexus, leaving behind wreckage from both sides and a Council fleet that had won but at tremendous cost. The battle report spread across the galaxy like fire. The Council had lost nearly 300 ships. The humans had lost 220. By traditional military mathematics, the Council had won. But military mathematics didn't account for perception. 300 ships had fought 5,000 and survived for 18 hours. That wasn't a defeat. That was a statement. Minor species are responding, James reported from New Defiance. We're receiving communications from enslaved populations across Council space. They want to know if the human broadcast was real. They want to know if resistance is really possible. Sarah stood in the medical bay, visiting wounded fighters. Burns, broken bones, radiation poisoning. The cost of their statement? Tell them yes. Tell them humans are proof that the Council can be fought. Over the following weeks, reports came in from across Council territory. Work slowdowns on mining operations, sabotage in processing facilities, protests on conquered worlds. The Council's machine of exploitation was grinding to a halt. And in the Council chambers, the 847 species argued. Some blamed humans. Others blamed each other for not stopping the occupation of Earth sooner. The Vryn presented their documentation, showing how the Council had violated its own principles. They're fracturing, Victoria reported. Not collapsing yet, but the unity is cracking. Sarah reviewed intelligence reports in her quarters. The Council had increased its military presence around Earth, punishing the human population for the Resistance's actions. Thousands more dead, millions more suffering. We're not doing enough, she said to Marcus, who had come to check on her. We're doing everything we can, Marcus replied. We're 80 ships against thousands. Then we need more ships, more resources, more everything. Sarah pulled up the map of Council space. The Vryn have been documenting the Council's crimes. What if we help them share that documentation? What if every species saw what the Council really is? You're talking about an information war, Marcus said slowly. We're already fighting a military war. Can we handle both? We have to. Military victories buy us time, but they don't change the system. We need to make the Council destroy itself. Sarah sent a message to the Vryn through encrypted channels. You've been documenting the truth. Let us help you spread it. The response came 3 days later, a Vryn scientist named Keth speaking with obvious fear and hope. We've been waiting for someone brave enough to ask. We have 50 years of evidence. Evidence of genocide, slavery, resource theft, cultural destruction. Everything the Council claims to stand against. Everything they actually do. But we can't release it. They'll kill us. Then let humans release it, Sarah said. You provide the evidence. We'll make sure the galaxy sees it. Over the next month, the Terran fleet didn't fight battles. They became couriers, spreading the Vryn documentation across Council space, broadcasting it on every frequency, dropping data packages on populated worlds. making sure every species saw what the Council had done in their name. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Species that believed the Council protected them learned it exploited them. Species that supported Earth's enslavement learned that dozens of other species had been enslaved before, many now extinct. The galaxy watched footage of Krell executing civilians, of stick processing facilities working enslaved populations to death, of Morphid infiltrators destroying resistance movements. The Council tried to suppress the information, but information wanted to spread, and humans were very good at making sure it did. Council emergency session has been moved up, James reported. 2 weeks from now. Every species is demanding answers. Sarah gathered her remaining commanders. 80 ships, 300 million people across New Defiance's worlds, and billions watching from across the galaxy. In 2 weeks, the Council decides Earth's fate, Sarah said. They could choose genocide. They could choose to maintain the occupation. Or they could choose to face what they've become. What's our move? Victoria asked. Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. We take the fight to them. We show up at the emergency session, uninvited, and we make them answer for every crime, every death, every species they've destroyed. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. You want to attack the Council homeworlds? That's where they'll have maximum defensive presence. I don't want to attack them, Sarah said. I want to put them on trial, in front of the entire galaxy, with us as the prosecutors and their own records as evidence. She looked at her commanders, seeing in them the same fire that had driven humanity through 50 years of occupation, through a desperate escape, through impossible battles. They supported Earth's enslavement, Sarah said. Now they're going to face Earth's justice, and when we're done, the galaxy will never be the same. The assembly world of Concordia had never seen a military fleet approach its sacred space. For 3,000 years, the planet had hosted the Galactic Council, a neutral ground where 847 species met to debate and decide the fate of civilizations. Violence was forbidden here, or was unthinkable here. The Terran Retribution Fleet appeared in orbit anyway. 80 human ships scarred from battle, bristling with weapons, broadcasting a simple message. We're here to talk. Will you listen, or do we need to make you listen? Panic erupted across Concordia. Defense fleets from 50 species scrambled to intercept. Diplomatic channels exploded with outrage. The Council chamber itself descended into chaos as representatives demanded explanations, threatened retaliation, and argued about who was responsible for this catastrophe. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of Defiance's fire, watching 12,000 Council warships form a defensive sphere around the assembly world, odds that would have seemed impossible months ago. Now they were just another problem to solve. They're demanding we withdraw immediately, Elena reported, threatening to destroy us if we don't comply. Tell them we're here for the emergency session, Sarah said calmly. We have evidence to present, documentation from their own records. If they refuse to hear it, we'll broadcast it to every world in Council space simultaneously. The transmission went out. Sarah waited, knowing the Council faced an impossible choice. Attack them and prove humanity's point about Council violence. Allow them to speak and risk exposure of decades of crimes. Either way, the Council lost. Minutes passed. Then a response came. Not from the Council collectively, but from the Vryn ambassador. The same one who had voted for Earth's enslavement 50 years ago. Commander Chen, this is Ambassador Keth of the Vryn delegation. We ask that you send a delegation to address the assembly. Your ships may remain in orbit under truce conditions, please. Give us a chance to hear you. Sarah looked at her command crew. Marcus nodded. Elena gave a thumbs up. General Stone's granddaughter Victoria just smiled. Prepare a shuttle, Sarah ordered, and prepare a backup plan if this goes wrong. 3 hours later, Sarah walked into the Grand Assembly chamber. The space was vast, a sphere large enough to hold representatives from 847 species. Thousands of beings turned to stare at the human woman who had dared to bring war to their sacred ground. Sarah wore her combat uniform, still stained from the Crossroads Nexus battle. She carried no weapons, only a data storage device containing the evidence the Vryn had compiled. The presiding elder, an ancient being from a species Sarah couldn't identify, spoke in a voice amplified through the chamber. Human Commander Sarah Chen of Earth, you have violated the most sacred protocols of Council space. Give us one reason why we shouldn't order your immediate execution. Sarah looked around the chamber. meeting the eyes of species from across the galaxy. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Some looked curious. "Because I'm here to show you what you've become," Sarah said, her voice steady. And because the galaxy is watching, she was right. The Council had made a mistake by allowing this session to be broadcast publicly. Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched as a single human stood before the collective power of the galaxy. Sarah activated the data device. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing footage, documents, communications, 50 years of Council atrocities, the enslavement of Earth, the genocide of the Kelnar, the cultural destruction of the Vess, the resource theft from 100 minor species. "You call this unity," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. "I call it tyranny. You voted unanimously to enslave Earth because you feared what humanity might become, but you never asked what you had already become." A Krell representative rose, his voice a roar. "Earth was dangerous. Humans are violent, unpredictable, a threat to galactic peace." "We are all those things," Sarah agreed calmly. "We're violent when people we love are threatened. We're unpredictable because we don't follow your rules. We're a threat to your peace because your peace is built on chains." She advanced through the chamber, and representatives actually backed away from her, one human woman unarmed, making the galaxy's most powerful beings retreat. "You know what's interesting?" Sarah continued. "We found your own records. The species you've destroyed because they were dangerous. The populations you've enslaved because they were inferior. The cultures you've erased because they were incompatible. And every single time you voted unanimously, every single species agreed. 847 voices saying yes to atrocities because saying no meant admitting you were wrong." A morphid delegate shape-shifted nervously. "We maintained order. We protected the galaxy from chaos. You protected yourselves from competition," Sarah shot back. "Earth developed faster than you were comfortable with. So you stopped us. How many other species did you stop? How many civilizations never reached their potential because you were afraid?" The Vryn ambassador Keth stood slowly. He looked old and tired. "Commander Chen speaks truth. We Vryn documented these crimes because we believed eventually someone would hold the Council accountable. We voted for Earth's enslavement because we were cowards. We chose unity over justice, and in doing so, we became accomplices to evil." Silence filled the chamber. Then other representatives began to speak. A delegate from the Thresh, a minor species, stood with visible fear. "The Thresh have served the Council for 800 years. We believed we were free members. Now we learn our homeworld's resources are classified as Council property. We've been slaves who didn't know we were slaves." More voices joined, species after species standing, questioning, demanding answers. The unity that had sustained the Council for millennia was cracking. "Enough," the presiding elder's voice boomed. "This human has brought disorder to our assembly. She has violated our protocols. She must be removed." "Try it," Sarah said quietly. "My fleet in orbit has orders. If I don't return safely, they'll broadcast everything we've found to every world simultaneously. Not just Council worlds, every world. Every species you've kept ignorant. Every population you've controlled through information suppression. Try to silence me and you'll prove every accusation I've made." The elder stared at her with something like hatred. "What do you want, human? Revenge? The destruction of the Council? Galactic war?" "I want justice," Sarah said simply. "I want Earth freed. I want reparations for 50 years of enslavement. I want the Council dissolved and replaced with a system where no species can enslave another. And I want every species you've harmed to receive the same." "Impossible," the elder said. "The Council is eternal. It is necessary. Without it, the galaxy descends into chaos." "Then let there be chaos," Sarah said. "Because your order is worse." The chamber erupted. Representatives arguing, some supporting Sarah, others denouncing her. The unity was gone, replaced by division and recrimination. Then the alarm sounded. The Council's defense fleet was moving. Not toward Sarah's ships, but toward each other. Species that had cooperated for centuries were now confronting each other. Decades of hidden resentment surfacing. "Commander, we're reading weapons fire." Marcus's voice came through Sarah's communicator. "Council ships are engaging each other. Multiple species have broken formation. It's chaos up here." Sarah had known this might happen. The Council's unity was a facade, held together by fear and mutual benefit. Remove the facade and the coalition collapsed. All ships, defensive positions only, Sarah ordered. Let them fight each other. We're not the enemy today. They are. The battle in orbit was confused and vicious. The Krell fired on the stick, old grievances finally expressed. The Morphids attacked the Thresh, who they had secretly exploited for centuries. Species after species turned on former allies as the Council's lies were exposed. In the assembly chamber, the presiding elder watched his civilization crumbling. "You've destroyed us," he said to Sarah. "No," Sarah corrected. "You destroyed yourselves. I just made you look in the mirror." Over the following hours, the Council fractured completely. Some species fled Concordia. Others formed temporary alliances. A few tried to continue the session, but there was no longer a council to convene. Sarah's fleet remained in orbit untouched. The Council species were too busy fighting each other to worry about humans. "Commander, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy," Elena reported. "Minor species are rising up. Labor camps are being liberated. Council facilities are being abandoned as enforcement species withdraw to protect their homeworlds." Sarah felt a grim satisfaction. This was what revolution looked like. Not clean, not organized, but inevitable. The Vryn ambassador approached her as the chamber emptied. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now we go home," Sarah said. "Back to Earth. Back to our people who suffered while we fought." "The Council fleet around Earth is withdrawing," Keth said. "The occupation is collapsing. But Earth is devastated. Your people are starving, sick, traumatized. Freedom isn't enough. They need help." "Then help them," Sarah said. "If the Vryn want redemption, start there. Bring supplies. Bring medicine. Bring the resources the Council stole for 50 years. Keth nodded slowly. "We will, and perhaps in time you can forgive us." "Perhaps," Sarah said. "But forgiveness is earned, not given. Start earning it." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Sarah's fleet was joined by unexpected allies, species that had been enslaved or exploited by the Council, now free and eager to help liberate humanity's homeworld. They found Earth changed. The Council's forces had withdrawn, but the occupation had left scars. Cities in ruins, population scattered, infrastructure destroyed. 3 billion humans remained, but they were broken. Sarah's shuttle landed in the ruins of Shanghai, where her journey had begun. Survivors emerged from hiding, thin and haunted but alive. They stared at the sky, at ships that weren't there to oppress them, and wept. "We're free," someone whispered. "Is it real? Are we really free?" "Yes," Sarah said, her own voice breaking. "We're free, and we're going to rebuild. Not the way we were, better, stronger. We're going to make sure no one can ever chain us again." The rebuilding took years. Earth slowly recovered, aided by new Defiance and by former Council species seeking to make amends. Humans from the Defiance colony returned to their ancestral home, bringing technology and knowledge. The two branches of humanity reunited stronger together. A new galactic federation formed from the Council's ashes. This one based on voluntary cooperation, not fear. Species joined because they wanted to, not because they were forced to. And at every meeting, human representatives reminded everyone why freedom mattered. Sarah Chen, now an old woman, stood in rebuilt Shanghai 20 years after the liberation. The sky was blue again. Trees grew in the parks. Children played in the streets, laughing without fear. Marcus joined her, gray-haired but still sharp. "Thinking about the cost?" "Always," Sarah said. "We lost so many. On Earth, in the escape, in the battles. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it." "Look around," Marcus said, gesturing to the vibrant city. "Ask them if it was worth it." Sarah watched a young girl chase a ball down the street, her mother calling after her with a smile. The girl wore a shirt with the flag of the Terran Federation. A new government humanity had formed. Free, independent, and determined to never be conquered again. "They enslaved us because they feared what we'd become," Sarah said quietly. "They were right to be afraid, but they never understood that our capacity for hope and forgiveness made us more dangerous than our capacity for violence." "Are we forgiven them?" Marcus asked. Sarah considered. "Some species, maybe. The Vryn have worked hard to make amends. Others will see. Forgiveness takes time. But we've proven something important. We've proven that enslaving humanity was their greatest mistake. Not because we're the strongest or the most advanced, but because we never give up, we never stop fighting, and we never forget." She looked up at the sky, seeing ships from a dozen species passing overhead. Allies now, or at least neighbors. The galaxy had changed. The old council's grip had been broken. In its place, something better was slowly being built. "What do you think your grandmother would say?" Marcus asked. "If she could see this?" Sarah smiled. "She'd say we did good. And then she'd remind us that freedom is never permanent. Every generation has to fight for it. Every generation has to prove they deserve it. So we keep fighting. We keep vigilant," Sarah corrected. "We keep strong. We keep remembering. So that if anyone ever tries to enslave humanity again..." She let the sentence hang. Marcus finished it. "The skies will burn," Sarah nodded. "The skies will burn." They stood together in the afternoon sun, watching humanity's children play in a city that had been destroyed and rebuilt. Earth was scarred but free. Humanity was wounded but unbroken. And across the galaxy, every species that had voted for enslavement remembered what happened when you underestimated humans. Sarah touched the memorial wall nearby, where millions of names were carved. The dead from the occupation, the dead from the escape, the dead from the war. So much sacrifice for this moment of peace. "We remember," she whispered to the names. "We survived, we won, and we'll make sure your sacrifice meant something." A young girl approached, the one who had been chasing the ball. She looked up at Sarah with curious eyes. "Are you Commander Chen? The one from the stories?" "I am," Sarah said, kneeling to meet her eyes. "Did you really fight the whole galaxy?" the girl asked. "Not the whole galaxy," Sarah said gently. "Just the parts that tried to keep us in chains." "My teacher says you were a hero," the girl said. Sarah shook her head. "I was just someone who refused to stay a slave. The real heroes are the ones who died fighting for freedom. I just lived to see it." The girl thought about this seriously. "Will someone try to enslave us again?" "Maybe," Sarah said honestly. "But if they do, you'll fight back. Like your parents fought, like I fought. Like humans have always fought. Because that's who we are. We survive, we adapt, we overcome." The girl smiled and ran back to her mother. Sarah stood, feeling every year of her age, every scar from the decades of conflict. "Time to retire?" Marcus asked. "Time to teach," Sarah said. "We need to make sure the next generation knows the stories, knows the cost, knows why freedom matters." They walked through Shanghai together, two old soldiers in a city full of hope. Behind them, Earth turned slowly, healing from wounds that had once seemed fatal. Above them, ships from a dozen species moved peacefully through the sky. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans could be enslaved, humans could be oppressed, humans could be conquered, but humans could never be broken. And those who tried to chain humanity discovered that freedom, once tasted, became an unquenchable fire. The Council had supported Earth's enslavement, believing humanity too dangerous to be free. They were right about the danger, wrong about everything else. Earth's revenge had ignited the skies, and in those flames a new galaxy had been forged, one where freedom wasn't granted by unanimous vote but defended by determined people who refused to accept chains. Sarah looked one last time at the sky, at the stars where so many battles had been fought, so many lives lost, so many victories won. "We did it," she whispered to her grandmother's memory, to all the fallen, to the 3 billion who suffered so 90,000 could escape. "We're free, and we're going to stay free." The sun set over Shanghai, painting the sky in reds and golds, not the red of fire and destruction, but the gold of hope and renewal. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The end was just a new beginning. And this time humans would write their own story.